All right, welcome back. It's Monday. We are starting week 4, and hopefully you have been keeping track with all of your work, because this week I'm going to probably start sending out a few emails giving you that gentle reminder that, hey, we need to get these assignments in and completed, because before we know it, it is going to be those preliminaries coming out, kind of giving you that heads up on how you're doing so far. In terms of planning, right, these come out on Monday, and I do want you to watch these videos on Monday so you find out what do I need to do for the week. All right, on Monday I kind of look at the list to see when are people logging in, and some people are waiting till like a Thursday to start checking to see when things are due. Please try not to make that a habit, because some weeks will be busier than other weeks. In this course, some weeks you might only have one thing to do. Some weeks there might be a few things you need to do where you want to know that on Monday, right? So then, and it's not like you have to do the work on Monday, but just watch this video so at least you know throughout the week what you have to do, right? Is there going to be one thing, two things, 3 little activities that you have to do, rather than waiting till a Thursday, watching the video, and then be like, whoa, I have to do a discussion post and I have to get 3 other activities done within, a matter of a couple of days. Watch it on Monday so that you can plan out your week and figure out, okay, I'll do this day, this, and so on, okay? So try to give yourself a little bit of a break on waiting and then building that stress and trying to get stuff done. Watch this video on Monday and then plan your week ahead. With our last week, looking at your ecological footprint, and hopefully you learned some good things about maybe how footprints are getting smaller, some good things around the world. Maybe there's some positive stuff we can look at in terms of COVID and everyone being, trapped inside of our houses for pretty much a year. What has that done for the planet? All right, so that was this past week, and hopefully we got that into the Dropbox. Just as a cool article, I posted this, and I don't know if maybe some of you didn't see it, but it's an initiative that is happening in Ontario and other parts of Canada, but it's trying to get us to start reusing the containers that we bring home into our house. So things like cereal and ketchup and ice cream in different containers. You keep the container, right, similar to a reusable coffee cup, and once you're done with the container, you just put it back on your porch. People come along, take it, fill it back up, and bring it back to you. And it's a program called Loop, right? Just a looping cycle of containers that they refill the containers you're already using. It's going to take a while for that to catch on, but it's a nice idea, and some things, at least there's things out there that people are trying to do to decrease that footprint size and limit, the Tim Hortons cup every day, those build up. Same thing as the containers for the food. A lot of it we are recycling, right? We are trying to put it in the recycling bin, but there is so much recycling happening in the world now. We can't keep up with that pace of producing products made from recyclables. That's the issue now with recycling, is that the world is doing such a good job of recycling. The industry of building stuff out of recycling can't keep up with how much recycling we're actually putting out there. So unfortunately, a large chunk of that recycling still does go in the garbage, where if we can just start reusing the containers we get our food in, right? That's a way of not even putting any stuff into landfills or recycling treatment plants. All right, let's dive into this week's work in the content. And we're still in the same section, but this is going to be the last one, where it's called The Way I See It. Click on the content. And when it comes up for this section, obviously, once again, I would like you to read the Minds On section, because this kind of, once again, gets your head thinking about who are stakeholders. And that's what this whole section is going to be about. Talk about that geographic perspective in terms of the environment, our economy, social and political, right? Those 4 realms, those are how you should start to even think about who are the stakeholders with any issue that we go over. So just give that one a look at. You don't have to do any work for it. But the first thing you're going to hand in this week, and this one can be a little bit on the shorter side because it is only action, but then for the consolidation, once again, you're going to make it a little bit longer. And some people have asked that in terms of the length of the projects. Minds On and action ones, when we give those ones obviously can be a little bit, not really short, but a little bit shorter, not having to look as much of a cleaned up project. But then when we get to the consolidation, those ones should look fairly cleaned up as if it is a final project you're handing in. So for this one, just once again, get your mind thinking about the geographic perspective, because In the last little bit, right, we're looking at those vocabs, looking at the trends and patterns, looking at the interrelationships, looking at the geographic perspective, right? These are always those terms that I want you to always keep going back to in terms of how you're analyzing an issue in geography: spatial significance, patterns and trends, interrelationships, and geographic perspective, right? So the geographic perspective is the one we're heavily going to focus on this week, with the social, political, economic, and environmental impacts for an issue. There are 2 videos, and each one's going to give a different viewpoint into a topic such as the Alberta oil sands, which will always be an issue in Canada in terms of, should we be going more for profit or should we be worrying more about the environment, right? And it's a balance between the two, because Canada gets a ton of money from the Alberta oil sands. So it's not like we can just say, nope, we're going to shut that down completely and we're not going to do it just for the sake of the environment, because that would drastically change our way of life. You can go through the little activities, right? For this, try to make a connection to some of the issues currently happening in Canada today with the rail blockages, highway blockages. You could also refer to the disputes on the East Coast over lobster trapping when you're making these. So there are multiple little issues in terms of stakeholder issues beyond just the Alberta oil sands that you could also bring in to your answer. So for this activity, you're completing a geographic perspective analysis of the Alberta oil sands. And then once again, you're just going to submit it right there. For our consolidation, still in the thread, because this is what this whole section is on stakeholders, this one should be a little bit more cleaned up, looking like a final product. By now you've practiced looking at various stakeholders and their things. So now you're going to watch these 2 videos. And these 2 videos are going to be about the Battle of the Arctic, right? Canada, called Northern Canada the Arctic, we don't go literally to the North Pole. Right, the North Pole is over top of water. It's not actually hitting land in Canada, right? So when we look up here, right, Canada, in terms of its land mass, shifts off to the side where it's way up at the top. And it's a big block of ice. But when you are analyzing this issue, you're going to do it from the perspective, tourism isn't the greatest one. Indigenous person would be a very good one to choose. But you get to choose who you want to view as a stakeholder. Could be an animal, could be a scientist. The tourist one, that one might be a little bit tricky, but that's okay. And then from a social perspective, political perspective, economic perspective. Now that you have your stakeholder role and perspective, you will create analysis of the issue of the Arctic dispute, right? Because we all have an opinion, right? And the social, right, just individual people, we can always have an opinion on how something should be run, because we are electing the people that make the decisions to do those things. This part of the assignment is optional. If you want to collaborate with your friends and kind of determine how, right? I'm going to say, even if, for those people that want to do kind of a different project, you could have this issue and you're kind of almost making like a mini debate where you could have 4 people and each person is choosing a different perspective, and you're kind of framing an argument on why your perspective is the best. So in terms of group work, this would be a great 4-person group work activity in terms of analyzing it from each person, take a different perspective, and argue it from that viewpoint, right? So optional, obviously it doesn't have to be group work, or you don't have to discuss it with your peers, but if you wanted to, you could join the discussion there, but that is an optional component. And then in the end, you are submitting your final summary of whichever 2 things, whichever stakeholder you came up with, and whichever perspective you chose. Now, I have a feeling I would get an email about this, and you can totally email me if you want to about this, but say you ended up with the tourist, and say you ended up with political, right? So a tourist and a political with the Arctic as the issue, and you'd be like, wow, this is a tough one, right? I'm going to say, ooh, that is a tougher one, where maybe you just want to push the button one more time and become a scientist analyzing and viewing it from that perspective, right? That's what you could do. You could do tourism, right? But even though tourism in the north is a limited thing already, but you could definitely do it, but it might take a little more thinking to come up with kind of an argument for it or perspective about it. But You are the one clicking these buttons, so I can't determine which one you actually end up on. You get to do that. So if you really don't like one, just give it an extra click, and then it will change to something, you might say it's like, ooh, those two match nicely. All right, so this week you have 2 things to submit. The first one is, let me scroll back up to it, is in the action section, going over the issue with the Alberta oil sands. Once again, put down some notes, fill out what the issues are with that. The second thing you're going to submit is in the consolidation section, and this is the one where you're watching the 2 videos about the Arctic, choosing a stakeholder and choosing a perspective in which to analyze it. Okay, so that's what we're doing this week. You are looking at the stakeholders of the Alberta oil sands and the stakeholders of the far north, and always relating it back to the 4 geographic perspectives. Okay, so try to always lock those in when we were talking about the concepts of geographic thinking, spatial significance, patterns and trends, interrelationships in the geographic perspective. If you can get those 4 things down and how to apply those things to an issue, in geography you will always be successful because it will relate to one of those things when you're analyzing an issue. All right, that's going to be it for the week. Hopefully it's a nice, easy week. Hopefully you kind of find it interesting and there are issues that you may not have even known were happening, and it gives you a kind of a eye-opening when you have to analyze it from a perspective in which maybe you don't see it at, right? You might not be someone who's focused on money, right? The economy part. You might be more the environmentalist part. But if you have to step back and view it from the economic perspective, right? What can you start to see? All right, so just see what happens when you view it from different sides, right? You might even, if you're looking to do that boost, give a comparative, right? Taking, when you do that little generator, maybe you're going to click it twice and add a little bit of looking at it from a different perspective. All right, and hopefully some people do that 4-person idea and kind of make like a little sort of debate on viewing it from different perspectives. All right, other than that, I will see you guys next Monday. Have a good week. If anybody has any questions though, send me an email. All right, later guys. Have a good week.